All right, everybody, let's take a chance to do a little bit of secondary dominant review. We're going to take a look at just a short little chorale example here. So let's get in there. Hopefully you've had a chance to look at this already. This is Christus, der ist mein Leben, and we're just going to sort of take a crack at looking at some of the issues in here. We've got some funky inversions maybe that are going to come up. But hopefully you were able to pretty quickly identify where the secondary function chord is in this one. So here we are in F major, and this is what it sounds like. Short and sweet there, right? So as I said, we're in F major, so nothing surprising there. And really, if we look, those first two chords, right? They're in different places. The melody moves, the bass jumps up an octave, but no big deal. It's all just a big ol' one chord, for the first two. Then if we look at that beat 2 chord in measure 2, we should sort of be able to spell that out. We got E, C, G, but we know E is not the root, because if E was the root, it'd be E, G, B flat. So that's no good. So we could pretty quickly see that C is the root, and that makes it a 5 chord, with the third in the bass is E, so that's a 5/6 chord, right? So pretty straightforward beginning. 1 to 5, 5/6 right there. Oh, we got Do, Ti, right? Very typical. E is the leading tone of F, which makes it sort of extra noteworthy that then here on beat 3, we've got an E flat, which is very much not a part of the F major key. So that should really spell out for us pretty clearly that this is not a chord that's in the key of F, and instead it's a secondary function chord. So what we have to do is sort of look here and say, okay, remember there's 2 ways to do this. The first way is to say, okay, what of the notes in this chord is acting like a leading tone? And then the other thing to do is we can always just look at where it goes, right? So if we look at the chord that comes after, that can really help us out as well. So if we look here, the chromatic note is E flat, but E flat is not acting like a leading tone. And part of the way we can tell that, right, is that E flat isn't going upwards, right? We know leading tones resolve up. That's their whole deal. So since E flat isn't going upwards, we might want to assume that E flat, even though it's the chromatic note, isn't the leading tone of where we're heading. So instead, we want to look here and see if we can stack that. And if we do, we find that we've got an F, A, C, E flat chord. So F is the root, but F is also the key, so that sort of is funky, but since it's got this chromatic note, we know that we're not dealing with a 1 chord, we're dealing with a 5 of something chord. And if we look here, if F is the root of a dominant chord, what's F 5 of? F is 5 of B flat. And what's the leading tone of B flat? A. And if we look in the soprano here, look, we've got A resolving to B flat, right? So we think this is a 5 of B flat chord. What's B flat in the key of F major? It's 4. So we've got a 5 of 4 going to 4/6. But that's not the last thing I want to talk about with this. It's the inversion as well, because it's not just any 5 of 4. We have the 7th of this chord, F, A, C, E flat, right? Root, 3rd, 5th, 7th in the bass. And when the 7th is in the bass, that makes it a 4/2 chord. So this is a 5/4/2 of 4, which goes to a 4/6, right? B flat, D, F, right? So really, really, really luscious sort of progression. 1 to 5/6, and then in the leading tone, instead of resolving up, it moves downwards to become the 7th, 5/4/2 of 4, which gets us to the 4/6 chord. And then what do we have here at the end? There's a lot of motion there, but how many actual chords are there in this last little measure here? Really, there's only two chords here. There's this stuff, and then there's the one chord at the end. So really, we would just call this 5 with some passing motion, and we're not too concerned about this little detail-y stuff, right? We want to sort of be looking for structural elements. And just because this moves upwards and has E in the bass there, you might be tempted to call this a 5/6 chord, but we don't need to change it. We're on 5. That's what we're really feeling, right? And even to sort of point back to that, on the last eighth note of that thing, it comes back to that root position 5 before getting to 1. So the two big takeaways here, number one, this last point that we just made, look for structural chords. Don't get too tied up in these tiny little details. That's going to be a big theme for this semester. We're learning to differentiate between the stuff that's just hiding out details in the weeds versus the structural big picture things. This is all felt as a 5 chord. And then, of course, in terms of our review, looking for these funky inversions. Even though the inversion is different, it doesn't change the fact that we know how a 5/4 chord works. And we also know that if the 7th is in the bass, that's a 4/2 chord. So there's some Christus, Darius mein Leben, and we will pick it up with the next one after you have a chance to look at it.